Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Coming at you, this is Brock Beard from NASCAR.info, coming at you just after the conclusion of the final 21 laps of the Coke Zero Sugar 400, drawing to a close. Probably one of the most exhausting weekends at Daytona in recent weeks, recent years rather. Lots of rain, lots of accidents, lots of craziness. But at the end of the day, Austin Dillon, who was leading at the end of those 21 laps, pulls off the victory, punches his ticket into the playoffs, and by just 3 points, pending the results of post-race inspecting whatever on earth is left of these cars in this field, Austin Dillon is in and Truex is out. That means Austin and Blaney in the playoffs and Truex is out. So a different set of circumstances than I think most would expect. Thank you for tuning in, folks. For those of you who were not in the show earlier, during the lengthy rain delay preceding the 3-hour rain delay that preceded these final 21 laps, I already did discussion of the Xfinity series and did our usual segments on show and tell and trivia. So if you're a big fan of those segments, definitely check out that channel, check out that video after you finish this today. We're just going to do a very brief wrap up here of everything else from the race today, including most significantly the runs that several teams that usually do not compete for the win do have here. This the Landon Castle leading this particular group, finishing in the 4th spot. Second draft that had formed up in the last couple of laps looked like they were about to really get a big run at the race leaders, and unfortunately that was exactly the moment that Austin Dillon got in the back of Austin Cindric into turn 1 and completely scattered that group. Despite that, both Landon Castle and Cody Ware had a massive run to actually challenge for the lead. In the case of Cody Ware in particular, was as high as 3rd. Coming around to turns 3 and 4 for the final time, just slipped back to the 6th place finish, but still a career best for both drivers. For Castle, it's a tie with his 2014 run for Hillman Racing at Talladega, only the second top 5 finish of his entire Cup career. That goes back quite a ways. He was actually driving for Gunselman's team back in 2009, he was. But Cody Ware, and again, I know there's the stories about Rick Ware Racing and, and Cody Ware and like how much they've struggled to really get their feet under them. Regardless, however this came about, obviously there was a lot that had to happen beforehand, but he avoided those accidents, probably had one of the most intact cars out there. And Ware did a fine job working the draft, trying to get up there, just dropped back at the very end as competitive as these are. The 6th place finish is certainly nothing to sneeze at there, and I think that's fantastic for him. And I know that that team and that driver, I'm sure, doesn't look forward to when I walk up to the trailer there covering the last place finishes thing, and I know that they've had their share. But I would be remiss to not congratulate them on this tremendous run. Easily the best run that they've had since they were looking really good in the qualifying races for the Clash back at the Coliseum way back in February. The other good runs out there too, same thing with BJ McLeod's team, the leaders in NASCAR Cup Series standings this year. I had never finished better than 19th this year, even with multiple drivers driving that car. Last year, BJ got his first career top 10 at Daytona in this race. And this time around, finishing in the 7th spot, was part of that same draft with the Rick Ware teammates between Cody Ware and David Reagan. Still pulls off a 7th place finish just ahead of Martin Truex Jr. So kudos to him on that as well. Now 2 top 10s for the 78 team, and those guys just needed that. They've had so many issues, especially with mechanical issues this year. And we talked to the first part of this show about the struggles their Xfinity program had. Nearly had Matt Mills get a top 10 in the Saturday race, in the Xfinity race. But good to see him in the conversation. Good to see these teams get a lot of attention for their sponsors, although in this case it looks like having the race in the background here, they've already shifted gears to the IMSA race. Doesn't look like they still did interviews with Cody Ware or BJ McLeod or Landon Castle. Hopefully the other media members at the track there are doing it as well as they did on early Sunday morning when they caught up with Timmy Hill and the other competitors there. Fine runs for both of them. Noah Gragson as well, his first top 10, his first top 5, and I believe just 11 Cup Series starts. Maybe a little bit less of a surprise given how good he's been in the Xfinity Series, but it's been a steep learning curve for him with a next-gen car compared to Ty Gibbs and the efforts in the 2311 effort. But him driving the expansion effort for Colleague Racing as well as a 2311 team good to see him up there. Looked like he was going to be able to make something happen as well. Kind of transitioned from Castle and Gregson in the first part of those 21 laps to the Rick Ware teams with Cody Ware and David Reagan throwing themselves into the mix there. But ultimately, the field did get kind of strung out, but things accordion back together at just the right time. We had a pretty close finish, and Dillon was able to lock up the win there too. So congratulations to Austin Dillon, and congratulations to a lot of the other competitors. They're able to work up there. And I have to say, congratulations to NASCAR on this part of it. I know there's a lot of controversy and a lot that needs to be worked out about their rain protocol that even led to all this happening. That big wreck, and the way these cars responded, and what Denny Hamlin is now contending with. I mean, apparently he was checked and released, but he was complaining of some soreness there after his wreck. That all does need to be treated very seriously. But in a very narrow sense, I will applaud NASCAR for sticking with this race and giving the fans the finish of the race there, despite a 3-hour-long rain delay there. I think that's tremendous there. Their commitment to, at the very least, get as much of the race in, knowing that this is the playoff cutoff race and wanting to settle it at the end. Was it the most competitive 21 laps? Not in the most sense, but I mean, there were so few cars left over. I think that was the best possible scenario in this, and that they were clean, that there wasn't any serious accidents after that. Cole Custer had a blown tire at the end, was well out of competition by that point. But I think that's another one to really look at there also. So kudos to those drivers and teams. Again, congratulations to Austin Dillon. It's going to be a interesting playoff here. Now we got both the Childress teams are going to be in the playoffs here. I know Richard's going to be ecstatic about that as well. So kudos to them on that. Unfortunate deal for Truex. Unfortunate for Bubba Wallace as well. Wallace had absolutely nothing he could do at the end. He was the first car one lap down. If there was a caution, he'd be able to get back into it. I don't know how much better his car would have performed than Truex or Kyle Busch, who are clearly having trouble in the draft there in that final stretch. But unfortunately, Bubba Wallace not in the playoffs, however, does have a contract extension, as does Truex. And now Kyle Busch, I guess we're going to find out more information on that probably, I don't know. I don't know when, but the fact that he did not pull off the win here today, I guess that's one other thing they don't have to worry about. But the 18 team, we'll see how they do in the playoffs and everything going forward from there. But really, again, I, as much as I do think that there are a lot of very serious questions that need to be addressed, especially in NASCAR officiating, and that conversation should absolutely continue. I would be remiss not to congratulate these teams on endurance. That's what I do when I print the certificates that I give to these drivers at the end of the season and plan to do again this year at Phoenix. What I write on there is it's not, haha, you finished last the most times. It's you're recognizing your endurance in the face of adversity, because that's what it's about. Maybe you finish last one day, you're out of the race in the first 10 laps, you come back out there and you get the best run you can. It makes all that worth it. And as I told Rick back at the Coliseum, back in February, Rick Ware, that is, these are the stories that we always hope to cover. These are the stories that we always want to be able to talk about. And this was absolutely a case of that. So congratulations to those efforts and the runs that they had out there. As to the discussions of the Cup Series race and the Xfinity race, we'll go ahead and kind of probably wrap that up for this part here. Again, we kind of talked about that in the first part of the show. So if you want to check out that, definitely check that out on the channel. I also want to give a big thank you to Mark Martin. I was caught flat-footed there. I got a retweet from him about Buddy Arrington on the video. Apparently he really enjoyed it. And that means the world. I think that was really, really cool. Mark has always been a great student of the sport. He was very supportive of the J.D. McDuffie book as well, and I'm glad that struck a chord with him. So if you hadn't checked out the Buddy Arrington video and you had any more reason to check it out, add that one onto the list. For those of you who weren't here in part one, I am just about done with the next video that I'm working on, which is a tribute to Neil Soapy Castles, who we just lost a couple days after the passing of Buddy Arrington. Big thanks to Brian Hallman at the BRH Racing Archives. He provided some tremendous material for that, and we'll hope to get that done within the next week. Those of you who are at the $5 and up levels of the Patreon will be able to have advance access to that video before it goes public. I'm glad the sound just sounded good here on the show here as well. So yeah, we have a new soundboard here. For those of you a little bit newer to the show here, definitely want to put more into the channel and get that all set up here. That's this board right over here. Not sure that shows up on camera. So we got that all set up. So, yeah, I think that about does it for pretty much a discussion of this one. Thank you for the super chat there, Beast of Metal. I want to make sure I read yours here as well. So I'm going to take a different track on the win and in is senseless debate and point out this. After 25 races using Latford points as added up by Iceberg, every playoff driver is tied for 18th. Only ones out of the top 16 are Hamlin and Briscoe. Okay, so that's interesting. Well, so again, different point standings. We talked about this kind of, and it's a good issue to raise. I haven't seen Iceberg's post on there, but it'll be interesting to kind of break that up. But the challenge, NASCAR Man did a video on this that I narrated for him on that, and discussing how difficult. I think what are the performances you want to reward? How much is it consistency? How much is winning? It's the age-old debate. It's nothing new. Certainly Bill Elliott and Darrell Waltrip in 1985 is a good example, or Jeff Gordon's dominance in 2007, only to be nowhere near his teammate Jimmy Johnson at the end. I think those are, those raise questions. And yeah, certainly looking at the points this year, I mean, the way Briscoe has seemed to have just terrible luck down the stretch, but now he's in a playoff position. Should he be? Well, I mean, I think that's different. Yeah, do you mean top 18 or tied for 18th? That's a good question there. Clarification on that. You don't have to post that in the super chat, of course, but just clarification to make sure I'm understanding the post there. Looking at your second post here. In short, this format isn't actually doing anything to promote parity. It will do even less once the playoffs actually begin. Yeah, I mean, again, it's tricky. I mean, you'd like to have it reward both consistency and winning. But again, I'm not a big fan of the playoffs at all. I think it would be great. I mean, Truex being so high up in the points, being as consistent as he is, and not being in the playoffs is pretty absurd given, some of the other teams that are in there that just got one win. And, the question that always comes up, I mean, what are they going to do in the first round of the playoffs, much less the later rounds of the playoffs, and figure that out? Probably meant top 18. Yeah, that makes sense. So, yeah, I mean, again, it's kind of interesting, but yeah, it's unfortunate that there's not a one size fits all thing. I still like a full season championship. The fantasy thing I still do, the fantasy league thing I do with my brother. We usually just do a full season championship because that's just most equitable. Obviously with two people, it's very different from a full field of 36 to 40 drivers. But yeah, you're not going to have a tie for the championship going in the last race every year. And it almost kind of makes it, not as special as that once used to be. I hate to kind of start off on that note going into the playoffs, but I get your frustration, Beast of Metal, absolutely. And I think that, having drivers that win and then drivers that don't win, that don't make the playoffs or don't have a chance at the championship, that's unfortunate. Because there have been some drivers that just, I mean, obviously this all stems from the Matt Kenseth championship in 2003. How much consistency is almost too much consistency sometimes seems like the question. But yeah. And yeah, A79, you raise that issue too. If you can't win the first 26 races, why do you think you'll be a contender for the title? Very good point. Very good point. If you can't win that first part of the year, it used to be there were only 29 races in the entire season. And if you can't win at that point, yeah, I mean, it should be just academic, whatever the rule is that's excluding these drivers. If they don't even really, if they haven't earned a position that way, then yeah, what's the difference? I mean, I tried to kind of tell myself that after the Bills lost in the playoffs last year, that, okay, it's a flip of a coin. I know John Boyes was very outspoken in his video about the Atlanta Falcons that, a championship game or the Super Bowl in that sense, coming down to a flip of a coin. It's like, well, if you don't want it to come to a flip of a coin, you better get it done regulation. I don't care how tired your defense is. They better dig deep and make sure that they don't tie you up. That's, creating an excuse for somebody that's not excelling at that point. That's antithetical to actually having somebody go for a championship. And I'm with that. And I feel I hated it with the Bills there. I would have loved it if they made it in, turn into football chat here a little bit. I would have loved it if they actually made it through and everything, but they did not earn it. And it'll be that much more gratifying when they do earn it. And that's the way you got to look at it. And Truex is a past champion. He knows this just as well as anybody. So they'll come back stronger, and he's got the ride again next year. So that'll be something else to look at. But thank you, Beast of Metal, there for the comment on that. I'll definitely have to look up Beast of Metal's there, or excuse me, Iceberg's comment on that as well to kind of compare that. 4 million during the rain delay, which is probably just for Cup. Oh, are you talking about charters? Yeah, it could be the situation there too. Yeah, Section 8. Yeah, I'm glad you like the setup here. Looking to kind of still get this all brushed up here at the same time. I'm just kind of checking the chat here for other topics here. Truex having a Stewart-like postseason. Certainly possible, F. Mecca. That's definitely possible. I mean, he's had some good runs at the races in the fall. I think if we still had Chicago on the schedule, Chicagoland, that is, he's always been really good there, but still not having that situation. James Pick, first last place finish for Kyle Larson. It is not. This is actually the 10th last place finish for Kyle Larson in his second of the season. He was last with another engine failure in the spring race at Darlington. I talked about this a little bit in part one, but I'll definitely brush that up here for those of you who are just here for this part of it. Larson with now his second last place finish of the year. The first time the number 5 has ever finished last in a Cup race at Darlington, pending post-race inspection. Of course, I don't think I'll stick around for the inspection results here. We've already had, you guys have already had a long enough day, I'm sure, already tracking the stuff from the race and here on the show. Maybe we'll do a couple trivia questions here to wrap up in a little bit, but I already talked about the Xfinity Series. Sammy Smith's last place finish, touched on that a little bit there yesterday, but very rare to have the number 5 finish last in anything at Daytona. Back at the dual race number 2, when Terry Labonte was the outside pole sitter in 1998. He actually parked his car in the early laps of his duel and finished last there. So not from a mechanical issue or a crash, but for different reasons in that sense there. So very different story there. That's kind of the story on that end. That article will be up later tonight, again, pending results of post-race inspection. The story from Sammy Smith's last place finish on Saturday to early Sunday morning. And of course, the thrilling victory of Jeremy Clements over Timmy Hill. Timmy Hill with his career best finish, much like we saw career best runs out of Cody Ware, Landon Castle, and BJ McLeod, and Noah Gragson on the Cup Series side of the schedule. Definitely stories to kind of look at there at the same time. But looking at a lot of these drivers that got to work their way in there, I think there was a lot of positives for these smaller teams to get featured. It's unfortunate it's under this penumbra of controversy here, not just between the rain and how quickly or slowly that was called. During part one of this earlier today, I again pointed out that I think some automatic system needs to be in place, just in the case of rain, not in the case of every caution. Not going kind of the direction where they were considering making changes with umpires in baseball and automating that, but more like, something that's like a rain sensor. Because if you have a pop-up storm like this, that's just going to come out of nowhere, I think you're going to have a situation where it's very hard to do the call, because somebody's going to have to notice it, then relay it to the guy in the booth. And even though it's a direct relay to the guy in the booth, it's no longer a simple flip of the switch at that moment. And even if it is, the drivers still need to see the light and slow down or get it relayed from the spotters there. There's too many steps. There would have to be a shortcut somewhere in there. Or even if it's just where maybe if you have with the spotters, they're standing there, they see rain, and they have the ability to override the switch. I mean, can you imagine that? Have the button on their control panel or something. Now you're going to have, but of course, in any of these changes, including having cautions come out when a rain is in a certain area, like they do with the lightning strikes, you're going to have situations where you're going to have too many cautions, and you're going to have situations where you're going to have too many disruptions of races. So obviously safety is paramount. That's where it should be treated seriously. There needs to be a measure that's in place that's going to be something that they can kind of figure out until they create either an automated system or something close to it. They're going to have to figure that out. I think today there's plenty of upset drivers that I'm sure are going to be keeping that conversation going as it should be. But that's another thing that I think that needs to be certainly looked at there. Cole Hicks, thank you for the super chat there as well. Any championship 4 predictions? Gosh, I think Ross Chastain and Denny Hamlin should be part of it. I think that would be great. Hamlin always seems to make the final 4 by hook or by crook. One way or another, he can get up there. And maybe it just doesn't work out for him, but maybe him racing Chastain will be that little bit of a difference there. I know he's probably hoping that happens so he can. I don't think that what we saw at Pocono is necessarily the end of that. I know I don't like usually hyping up these rivalries between drivers. I think the whole Chase Elliott, Kyle Larson thing there was way too much being made of that. Ended up being pretty moot today with what happened to both those drivers. But maybe one of the Hendrick guys up there, probably Chase with all the wins he's had. So him and the 4th guy. Logano might squeeze something out of Martinsville again if he doesn't in Las Vegas, since Pennzoil's had a long-standing sponsorship over there. So yeah, maybe that's it. Yeah, Hamlin, Chastain, Logano, and Hamlin, Chastain, Logano, and I've already forgot my other one on that one. Probably Chase. Yeah, to round that out, Chase Elliott. The other ones, guys like Cindric and Briscoe. I mean, Briscoe in particular is just really having a difficult stretch here. Cindric looked good today, but we only got one super speedway race yet. You can't just rely on that. But he was very consistent around the Sears Point weekend. We only got one road course race, so I'm not sure how that's going to work out. But I think that's another one to kind of look at there at the same time. So that'd probably be my championship 4, Cole. But thank you for the super chat on that as well. But with everything coming up, I mean, we got Darlington next week. I think that's going to be very exciting. Certainly, I have to keep reminding myself. Somehow I keep thinking Kansas starts the playoffs, but obviously it's still Labor Day weekend next week, which means the Southern 500. I think they're going to put on a good show out there. Loved covering that race a couple of years. And I think really drivers like Kyle Larson, that could be another place for him to kind of get his feet back under him. Came very close to winning Darlington a number of times, whether it's winning a stage early in the race or grinding the wall, trying to chase down Denny Hamlin. This year could be the year. Maybe the next gen car is the way that he can get in there. We didn't get a chance to see how he could run in the spring race because that was his other last place finish in the spring. But maybe he can bounce back, and that'll be interesting. You got to look at Denny Hamlin. You got to look at Austin Dillon. Even after the win today, Dillon came very close to winning a Darlington race not too long ago. So I think those are ones you got to kind of look at. Could it be Ross Chastain? He was very good in the Earnhardt throwback back in the spring race here. If he can avoid the wrecks that we saw in the spring race, there's absolutely no reason he can't be a factor in it. So I think it's going to be a great showcase of a lot of the championship contenders. In spite of the fact that, I think a lot of the drivers that could make Phoenix could probably just kind of sleepwalk through the first round. I think we're going to see some very aggressive moves from guys like Hamlin, like Chastain, like Kyle Larson in this first race, like Chase Elliott as well, certainly. So I think we should be looking forward to a pretty competitive Southern 500 next week. And as I mentioned in part 1 as well, and I tweeted there too, that weekend we'll also see the revealing of the JD McDuffie mural in Sanford. I posted the details on my Twitter feed, including the phone number for more information. That's going to be in downtown Sanford that afternoon on Monday, which will be next week, Labor Day. So if you're in the area, definitely go ahead and check that out. I was able to write a press release to help the McDuffies out on that as well. And that's going to be very exciting there too. I'm not going to be out there for that this year, but I'm looking to definitely check it out myself sometime in the near future here, and we'll get that figured out. The next race that I'm looking to cover will be in Las Vegas in mid-October, followed by Phoenix in early November, and that's kind of what we're looking at here at this point. Pretty sure Cindric's the rookie of the year, probably. I mean, with the wins this year, and then kind of outperforming ahead of Briscoe down the stretch. I think that's Briscoe was last year. Never mind, it would be Cindric. I think he's definitely locked that in. I mean, we saw that with Custer before, with winning a race and making the playoffs, and pretty much locking that up at this point. It's too bad that it becomes kind of anticlimactic because sometimes we've had long battles for Rookie of the Year. I think of Bobby Hamilton versus Ted Musgrave, or Dale Jr. versus Matt Kenseth. A lot of those went the distance. Jimmy Johnson and Ryan Newman was another huge one. But unfortunately, that wasn't the deal. I saw a question on the microphone. This is actually the same microphone I do my videos on. I've actually got to re-record a segment for my next video after I wrap this up, but that'll be another one to kind of look at there too. But that'll be kind of the situation. But yeah, I use I think the door bumper clear people do this. It's a Rode mic. It's this one right here. So we got that. So just the, I think it's the Podcaster, if I remember correctly. It works pretty well. And when I do the videos, of course, I'm much closer to the mic, so it comes out a little clearer, and then do some processing after that. So that's kind of the difference there. Turned into football and audio chat here for the last one here. We'll do a couple trivia questions here to wrap up. I'm just going to go ahead and pick a category, because I'm sure we have probably we got 77 people in here. Thank you so much for tuning in. Probably a smaller group here from the earlier one here, but a good group here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I apologize. It's going to be kind of a brief show here today, but we did do a lot of discussion from the earlier part there. And if you want to check that out after the show, I don't want to take up too much more of your time here if you want to check that out as well. We did the teams category in part 1. We'll do a couple questions to kind of wrap that up there at the same time there. Hamlin is going to struggle just to escape round 2. Ooh, that's a bold prediction, Beast of Metal. It's certainly possible. We got to see how things kind of regroup with the playoff points. Yeah, so him plus everyone before, except 4 of those will be done in 1. And 2 will be blown out of the water round 2. Yeah, no, I mean, it can be tricky. It can be tricky. But if Hamlin wins the Southern 500, I mean, all bets are off. I mean, this race can be I know that we've had playoff seasons like when Greg Biffle won the first couple in 2008 and then just completely fell off the face of the earth in a season that Johnson, Kyle Busch, and Carl Edwards were dominating. I don't think we're going to see that this year. I think we're going to see a really good start to the season at Darlington. I think Darlington is itself, and especially the Southern 500, that has always been a race that separates the men from the boys. You got to, in any car, in a wheelbarrow, you got to really get the best performance out there that you can. And I think I would expect that we're going to see something pretty exciting in next week's race. So very excited to get that started, and it'll be a good way to start things off for the playoffs here. I'll do a couple of trivia here to wrap up the evening here, and we'll start with this. So first question, I'm going to do the teams category from earlier today. The first question is, what Cup driver hired Boris Said to drive for his 1998 Craftsman Truck Series team? Oh, didn't even mention that in the first part there. Awesome to see Craftsman back again. I admit I got a little teary-eyed when I heard that promo where they said the Craftsman Truck Series and showing those old clips. That's how you do it. That is a quality promo. One of the best I've seen. I think I looped it. I was at lunch at work and I was looping it like 5 times on that. It was great. That was fantastic. Better than and like I said, better than anything FS1 has done with the Truck Series in the last 5 years combined, easily. So, kudos to Craftsman coming back. It's going to be great hearing that name again. But again, the series itself is only going to get better if they revamp their booth. And I like the suggestion that people had. Bring somebody new in there. Heck, I would take the Marbula 1 guy to broadcast the Truck Series race at this point. And nothing against him. I think Greg Woods does a great job with that. I mean, if you can make marbles compelling as he has, I think look what he could do with the Truck Series. So that's my suggestion. If it can't be Alan Bestwick, or Rick Allen can't get back to the Truck Series and go back to what he did decently well during the whole Donnie Leah era and everything, I would look at that. So there you go. What Cup driver hired Boris Said to drive for his 1998 Craftsman Truck Series team? That is the question. We got guesses for Kyle Petty, Irvin, Earnhardt, MB Motorsports, Rick Hendrick. Has Kyle Busch become more sympathetic, Judo Joker? Not sure. Good question. Hard to tell. That'd be a good question on that. I guess we're going to find out. Showing Truex in the playoffs for some reason, Beast of Metal? Oh, that's surprising to me. You think I'm seeing Tyler Reddick as a pick. Alexander Green, you picking Reddick in the Final Four? That's not a bad pick. I might be sleeping on Reddick here. he could absolutely. I've been very impressed with, especially how he's run this summer. He's running as well this summer that I expected him to as a rookie, but he just kind of, I guess he just needed some time to kind of get going. We saw this right from the beginning of the year when he was running so well in the Clash. What Cup driver hired Boris Said to drive for his 1998 Craftsman Series team? The answer is Ernie Irvan is the answer. Irvan. Whoop, sorry. I think I got the camera tilted there. Irvan is the answer. Sean Doyle, looks like you were the first one on that one. Sean Doyle, right on. Ernie Irvan is the correct answer. Andrew Bremer, you got it. Stephen C. Oh, those of you in part one, we had a weird question at the very end of part one, right before they started the race. And it said, like, what was the addition of Morgan Shepherd and Jeff Burton's car numbers in 1998? And it said that it was 100, which I guess was thinking when Morgan Shepherd drove for Richard Jackson in 1997, not 98. 98, I think he drove for like the 91 car. Drove for LJ Motorsports. He drove for Mike Skinner. He was a relief driver. Shepherd was all over the place in 1998. So I don't think it was a good question on that. And I think it was wrong about that when it said 100. I think it was thinking 1997, where Jeff Burton was still in the 99, but Morgan Shepherd was in the 1. So that was kind of a weird one. There you go. Let's see. No, that one's too easy. Do a couple more here. What owner relied on Donnie Allison and Darrell Waltrip to drive in the 70s? Oh, let me rephrase that. Make sure I rephrase that correctly. What owner relied on Donnie Allison and Darrell Waltrip to drive in the 70s? That's our next question. What owner relied on Donnie Allison and Darrell Waltrip to drive in the 70s? That's our next question. Turn this off because this is a little distracting. What owner relied on Donnie Allison and Darrell Waltrip to drive in the 70s is the question. Our guesses for Dygard and Gardner and Bill Gardner. I think a lot of you are right. Here we go. The answer to the question is indeed Dygard Racing. That is correct. Dygard, you all got it there. Jolly Jake Lavelle, looks like you were the first one on that. Right on. Brock Beard Motorsports, there you go. I don't think that would be... I don't think that team would be able to get those drivers for sure. Like I mentioned in the first part, and I see that A79 IROC is in here as well. Big thanks to those of you, again, to check out the Buddy Arrington video, including Mark Martin on that video. I'm still tickled by that. That's outstanding. I'm really pleased with the response that's been getting, in no small part to the pictures that Brian Holman at the BRH Racing Archives provided, and many of you on YouTube that provided video clips from Arrington's career. Complete list of the videos that were used is actually in the caption of that video if you want to check out any of those, including past races that Arrington was in. Really enjoyed putting that together. I've been meaning to do something like that for other drivers in the past. The next video I'm working on is actually on Neil Soapy Castles, and Brian again provided some excellent pictures for that. Expect that one in the next few days. I'm nearly done with that one. I just want to kind of polish it up and get it ready. Those of you who are in the $5 and up levels of the Patreon will be able to have advanced access to that video, and that will be available for you there too. So very excited on that to put these videos together and get them out there to share with you guys. Got questions about Rise of the Field Fillers. The next episode of that is on Stanton Barrett. That will be the next video that I'll be working on. And I know there's been countless delays on that. But I'm very happy with what's come together on the script. I need to talk with Stanton to kind of finish up his edits on it. And at that point, I'll be ready to record, and that'll be downhill from there. So we'll get that done. So yes, Rise of the Field Fillers is coming back. I know it's been on again, off again, but you'll see very soon in some of the other projects I'm working on why that's been the case. But I'm very excited to kind of get that together. Alrighty. Okay, so we'll do one more question here for tonight. Again, I know it's a bit of a shorter show here, but any discussion of the Xfinity race, we definitely go more in depth into Timmy Hill's outstanding run there. Jeremy Clements pulling off the win, amazing for him. Had to bring out the 51 shirt here today. All that is definitely covered in the first part there, so you can check that out. But for those of you who've now had a very long day here, we're just going to wrap up the show here pretty soon. So here's the last question for the evening on this one. Who built the Comets' Darrell Derringer drove to his season-high 3 wins in 1966? Who built the Comets' Darrell Derringer drove to his season-high 3 wins in 1966? Death Killer, Stanton Barrett at Watkins Glen. It was good to see him in the ARCA race. Apparently he had a pretty good run there, but unfortunately he missed the Xfinity race. I mean, just a really competitive field there. So there's that. And yes, Rick Ware's Twitter, and I think, what was it? Steve Lavender's been keeping track of that. Yes. David Reagan's now finished in all 40 available positions in a Cup field, as well as once 41st, 42nd, and 43rd in the Cup Series. I know when he finished 43rd, that was the 2012 Daytona 500. And he's had 40th place runs beyond that. So yeah, congratulations, I guess, there. That definitely fills the, I guess, NASCAR's equivalent of the scoregami there on that. So that's a pretty impressive statistic there. Who built the Comets? Darrell Derringer drove to his season-high 3 wins in 1966. Alexander Castaneau, maybe. Ray Fox, Bud Moore. We'll see here. Just saying Dygaard was the wrong answer. No, you got it. Dygaard's the right answer from that earlier one. Or Irvan, as the ESPN booth used to call him, Jolly Jake. Yeah, there you go. Yeah. Irvin. Some names are just hard. I mean, you know, I guess with these broadcasters, maybe it's like I remember Jerry Nadeau's name was like that. Jerry Nadeau or Jeff Bodine. I always think about the Eli Gold one. I hope Eli is doing well. I understood there was some message a while back that he was dealing with some health problems, but certainly pulling for him there. I mean, again, another voice that was just absolutely part of my childhood, and I know many others as well. So hope he's doing okay. Ned Jarrett, Bud Moore brought the Mercuries from Strope. Okay, here we go. Who built the Comets? Darrell Derringer drove to his season-high 3 wins in 1966, and the answer, Numachek. Yeah, there's another one. The answer is indeed Bud Moore. Bud Moore. We had a couple Bud Moore questions here tonight, and that one is the one here today. So with that, thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. That will do it for the show tonight. Congratulations to Austin Dillon. Pending post-race inspection. I will check that. I don't want to do what I did last year and call this a moment before we had inspection results. I will check it here, and if we get a call during this, okay, I'm seeing videos posted by Pockrass within about the last 3 minutes, interviews with Ryan Blaney and Martin Truex, among others, and also looking at the results. Only Keselowski was out under the DVP. Keselowski and Harrison Burton and Eric Jones out under the DVP. That's interesting. I still want to understand the difference between a driver declared out by a crash and the DVP. But Keselowski, the only one at the bottom 5 out under the DVP. Engine failure, the reason for Kyle Larson's DNF. So that will do it for the show tonight. Again, pending the results of post-race inspection, it'll be Kyle Larson in the your last place finisher for the race tonight. Well, we'll see. Hopefully we don't have a result in technical inspection. There'll be 2 summer Daytona races in a row, but that'll probably be the different situation there too. So have a wonderful afternoon and evening, folks. Thank you so much, everyone, for tuning in. Congratulations to all the underdogs that had great runs this weekend. And our next show is going to be next Sunday night, pending, of course, the same weather conditions for the Southern 500. We'll cover the action in the Cup Series, I believe the Xfinity Series from that weekend, and we'll pick up from there. So in the meantime, at Last Car on Brock is my Twitter feed. Patreon.com/Last Car on Brock is the Patreon. This channel, of course, is the YouTube channel to check out more content. Have a safe week, everyone, and we'll see you guys next week. Take care, folks.